evening, everybody.
Good evening.
All right. I'm just going to go back over the rules because some people, they never go to Canvas. It's just there for them. It's required reading in this course. Canvas? Has anybody ever heard of it? But here are the rules of the game. I will call on the first person who raises his or her hand to answer each question. I will award 5 bonus points to the first person who can correctly answer each question. A question is not, some of them, they're not just one little question. You got to be able to, you got to read. They're like blanks. If you can fill in all the blanks, then raise your hand. If you don't know all the blanks, don't raise your hand because you're not ready. So then, if you can answer all the blanks, then you'll get your 5 points. And then you will be a preliminary round winner. But if you answer one question correctly, you can only be one preliminary round winner per person. Okay? You can't answer 2 questions in this round. Okay? Then I'm going to bring all of my preliminary round winners back into the courtroom, at which time I will ask a final question, and then I am going to hire my business law apprentice. Are we ready?
The question is it his job?
No.
Well, you say no, that's why you're here.
Someone will leave happy.
Who's going to get the dog? You want to go get the dog?
And someone
Put the dog down. Put the dog down.
will leave broken-hearted. Judge Judy.
Who's going to get the dog? You? You want to go get the dog? She said she has the dog here. You want to show me something?
Yes.
What?
I have a document from my vet, and they're saying the dog's a mixed breed. He's 5 years old. I have a health certificate.
The question is this his dog? Your vet can't tell you how old the dog is. The vet can tell you whether the dog's a puppy, whether it has puppy teeth, whether it's 3 years old or 5 years old. The dog can't tell you.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Madam, listen to me carefully. Put the dog down. Put the dog down. Put the dog down.
Hey, boy. Hey, big boy. Hey, man.
Madam, listen to me carefully. Put the dog down. Put the dog down.
Hey, boy. Hey, there. That's baby boy.
Pick him up.
Come on, man. Hey, baby boy. Oh.
That's all. Take the dog home.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I knew it was him because I said, baby boy, I knew it was him.
I just bought the dog from a girl who said she had a pit bull, and the pit bull was trying to eat it.
That's what happens when you buy a dog for $50 in front of the mall.
He's part of our family. He's actually my mom's dog.
This means everything in the world to me. This is like my child.
My mom's 66 years old, and she's never had a pet.
The case of the missing puppy. This is our preliminary round question number 1. The case of the missing puppy is an example of what category of law? I saw your hand go up first. Yes, sir.
Substantive.
What kind?
Substantive.
Say it again.
Substantive. I don't know how to say that.
Well, that's not what I'm looking for. I saw another hand come up over here. Yes, ma'am. Coming on? No. Yes, sir.
Private law?
Yes. Private law. The case of the missing puppy is an example of what category of law? Private law. Now, we don't even know, I don't really know what kind of case, I mean, it can be substantive, so I'm gonna have to think about that. But it's private law, that's what I'm looking for. That's not the right. But this is where our book talks to us about the different categories of law. This all got mixed up. All the different categories of law. Your substantive and your procedural, but in this case, I'm looking for that private law. So, remember when we talked about, this is kind of hard to see, but we want to say private laws are recognized as binding between two parties, even though no specific statute or regulation provides for the rights of the parties. This is like that was a private law case. That's all that was, between two people.
My name is Les Nussman, reporting from Wolfpack Reality Network. We are outside of small claims court, but there is quite a commotion. Students from all over campus are here because of the wave of missing laptops. Dozens of computers have been stolen from students while they were studying in the library. The plaintiff in this civil action is claiming her $200 reward. The plaintiff returned the computer to the student listed on the reward poster in the library.
All rise. Oyez, oyez, oyez. Small Claims Court for the District of Wolfpack is ready for the dispatch of business. His Honor, Daniel Miller, is president and presiding. Draw near and be attentive.
Please be seated. The next case, Smith versus Johnson. Ms. Johnson, are you present?
Present, Your Honor.
Mr. Johnson, are you present?
Present, Your Honor.
My reviews on the complaint of in court papers indicate that this dispute is for $200. The deputy sheriff served the summons, signed the document, and returned one copy. The defendant is here. The amount is less than $5,000, and this court has jurisdiction. Plaintiff, are you ready? Defendant, are you ready? Mr. Bailiff, you may swear in the parties and their witnesses.
Do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
I swear.
Plaintiff, you may begin.
I took a break from studying in the library when I saw a poster on the hall bulletin board. I would like to introduce this poster into evidence.
This poster is one I put up all over campus. I have no problem with it being placed into evidence.
Okay, this poster will be marked as the plaintiff's evidence, number 1.
Your Honor, I called and called the number on the poster all day long and no one answered. That evening, I went to the address listed on the poster. The roommate of the owner of the computer answered the door and said that the owner was not home. I gave the roommate the laptop in exchange for a written receipt for the computer. I waited weeks and weeks and never heard anything. And still, Your Honor, some 2 months later, I still have never been paid. That is my case.
Question number 2. The type of contract in the case of the lost laptop, you gotta have all the blanks before you raise your hand, is an example of a blank contract. A blank contract involves one promise followed by one blank, which then triggers a second blank. Yes, sir.
Unilateral contract. A unilateral contract involves one promise followed by one performance, which then triggers a second performance.
That is correct. And in our book, there's an example of a reward poster when it talks about this type of contract. The type of contract in this case, the case of the lost laptop, is an example of a unilateral contract. A unilateral contract involves one promise followed by one performance, which is the person coming with the laptop. Then that triggers a second performance, which would be payment, if all considerations are met. I think that is our slide from our notes, which talks about the bilateral contract and the unilateral.
It is true that Ms. Smith dropped off my laptop when my roommate was at home. It is also true that she was given a note saying that she had returned it. However, when Ms. Smith came to the door, my roommate recognized her. He works at the library. Ms. Smith has always been seen lurking around the library when computers seem to go missing. It is his belief that she is the one that's been stealing all of these computers.
There's the court. We'll have the bailiff clear out the room.
My roommate said he could look into her eyes.
Objection! The roommate is not here to testify. It is not fair.
Your Honor, my roommate had to work. He had no other option.
Did you subpoena your roommate as a witness?
No, sir. I had no idea the subpoena was required.
Subpoena forms are in the deputy clerk's office. Plaintiff, your objection is sustained. Defendant, you may not quote your roommate.
Well, I saw on TV that it's all right if a letter was used in court.
Objection! The roommate is still not here to testify. I cannot ask him questions.
Objection is sustained.
Your Honor, I prepared my entire case based on the fact that my roommate had his note notarized. It was done in front of a public notary.
Objection! The roommate is still not here to testify. I cannot ask him questions. The notarized letter is inadmissible in court because it denies me my rights.
The letter and the notarized document are both hearsay and inadmissible.
So, question number 3. The case of the lost laptop, in the case of the lost laptop, the judge is making a court ruling on court rules, which is an example of what category of law. Blank laws provide a structure and set out blank for pursuing substantive rights. Yes, sir.
Procedural laws.
Yes.
Provide structure and set out rules for pursuing substantive rights.
Yes. Yes. You have to follow the court procedure. So when you come into court, you just can't be coming in there, you know, with all kinds of hearsay. You got to bring your witness. You can't come in and try to tell a judge what the witness is going to say. That's court procedure. That is hearsay. And so any document or anything that is going to try to communicate for a witness that's not in court is going to be outside of the courtroom procedure. And so that is procedural law that help us to carry out substantive law. And then this is our slide that we talked about the substantive laws and the procedural laws. So we talked about categories of law. We talked about sources of law, and then we talked about categories of law. And this is straight from the book. Okay. Here is question number 4, business ethics. That's a chapter that we're on right now. Is defined as a blank of what is blank or blank in the workplace. And a blank to take in blank for a blank course of blank in blank operations. A lot of blanks. Yes, sir. You got all the blanks.
All the blanks.
Go ahead. Go for it.
Business ethics is a consciousness of what is right or wrong in the workplace and a commitment to taking responsibility for an unethical course of action in the business operation.
Yes, sir. There you go. Business ethics. A consciousness. I mean, it's not like something that we have to go find a definition for. If you're doing something that's wrong, then that's not ethical. If you at Chipotle and you know all the people are sick in the place, and you in there and you letting them prepare food, and then all the people in the neighborhood get sick, and then you clean up the place and clear out the whole place, send all the working crew out and bring a whole new working crew in from across town before the health department shows up, that's probably not ethical. And so here's our side, a consciousness of what is right or wrong in the workplace, and a commitment to taking responsibility for an ethical course of action in business operations. That's business ethics. Fourth Amendment, we talked a lot about this. A blank or blank conducted by the government is illegal without a blank from a blank or magistrate. To obtain a warrant, the government must first demonstrate blank to a blank or a magistrate that the proposed blank or blank is justified under the law. I saw your hand go up first, but I feel like a hand could have went up over here somewhere. But go ahead. Yes, sir.
A search or seizure conducted by the government is illegal without a warrant from a judge or magistrate.
Yes.
To obtain a warrant, the government must first demonstrate probable cause to a judge or magistrate that the proposed search or seizure is justified under the law.
Yes. We talked a lot about that when we talked about that. The memo. A search or a seizure. I felt the probable cause hand going up over here somewhere. A search or seizure conducted by the government is illegal without a warrant from a judge or a magistrate. To obtain a warrant, the government must first demonstrate probable cause to a judge or a magistrate that the proposed search or seizure is justified under the law. That is our Fourth Amendment right under the Constitution. Every person. And that is going to extend in some instances to a business as well. And that is our slide that we used to cover that. Okay. Now we did a lot of work on this. Jurisdiction requires a two-part analysis. A court must have both 1 blank and 2 blank, also known as blank. Blank is the court's authority over the blank between the parties, while blank is the court's authority over blank. Yes, sir?
It's subject matter, jurisdiction, personal jurisdiction, and personal.
It's also known as yes, in personam jurisdiction. Okay.
And then subject matter jurisdiction. Court's authority over the dispute between the parties, while personal jurisdiction is the court's authority over the parties involved in the dispute.
Yes. Yes, sir. Very good. Primary stakeholders are generally those who feel a direct impact based on a decision. Primary stakeholders. Secondary stakeholders are those who do not have any direct connection to the business, but may suffer some adverse consequences in an indirect way. And so in this respect, the tax customers or the tax company customers could possibly be categorized as secondary stakeholders of the landlord. See, they have no real connection to the landlord, but when he makes the business decision to evict the tenant who is the owner of the tax company, then he should take into consideration the sensitive nature of the documents that he's just throwing out into the alleyway. And so these secondary stakeholders could be impacted by that business decision. And that's business ethics. Okay, is it ethical to just throw out people's tax returns with their social security numbers on them? You know it's a tax business. So that may not be an ethical decision. Okay. So here's question number 8. Suppose that Oscar has been working at his job for 40 years and is retiring. His boss approaches him a week before his last scheduled day and tells him that because he's been such a faithful and effective employee for the past 40 years, on Friday, his last day, there will be a party and he will be presented with a gold watch. He gratefully thanks him and accepts the offer of a party and a watch. On Thursday, he is disappointed when informed that there will be no party and he will not receive a gold watch. What elements of a valid contract are missing? And why is this an unenforceable contract? Yes, sir.
It goes under like consideration where bargain in exchange illusory promise is a gift.
Okay. All right. So, what elements of a valid contract are missing? Consideration. It's, and I like that word you use, it's illusory. It's like a gift. It's past consideration. Although this communication includes both an offer and an acceptance, it is unenforceable because it lacks consideration, because Oscar's 40 years of faithful and effective employment is past consideration. There is no detriment in the future in exchange for the promise that he's getting, and you have to have that in a contract. As such, the party and the gold watch would be a gift.
This is the case of Rob Vasquez versus Juancho Haran. Mr. Vasquez, why don't you tell me what brings you here today?
Sure, Your Honor. Suing Mr. Haran here and his company Digital for failure to pay an $18,995 custom CD sleeve order placed by his assistant, Bill Freeman.
Okay, Mr. Haran, how do you respond to that?
Your Honor, I will begin by saying that the order was not placed by my assistant.
Yes,
it was placed by me. I placed the order before I went on vacation, and I made it clear to him what the order was, that Hive's record wanted the sleeves in a particular order, and that they wanted it done in a particular way. And therefore, the order wasn't custom placed by my assistant. My assistant just followed up with
Mr. Vasquez, you'll have a chance to respond in a moment. Go on, Mr. Haran.
My assistant just was responding to the request by Hive's record to increase the order by an extra 10,000 sleeves. That was all that was necessary. If I had placed the order originally in a certain way, I don't know why Mr. Bob Vasquez, who I've been dealing with for 9 years, has taken the liberty to change the order completely.
You've had a 9-year relationship?
Of course,
Yeah,
9 years.
9 years.
And in 9 years, I have confirmed every single order with him.
Until he got this new assistant that doesn't know what he's doing.
No, he doesn't know what he's doing. He's been with me for 2 years, lawyer.
Mr. Haran,
Sure.
why is it that your assistant called and changed the order, or why did he call? He wanted to add more to the order?
Exactly. I left and I left instructions. I left everything done for my assistant, including having spoken with
Your assistant was the one who called me.
Mr. Vasquez, please wait until I ask you questions. Mr. Haran.
I said to my assistant specifically, I said to him, I said, there is no changes to be made in any of the orders without contacting me. I'll be out of town, you'll know where to reach me in case of an emergency. I called Rob Vasquez before I left. I filled out his order sheet, asked for what I needed, which were 10,000 sleeves at the current time. While I was out, Hive Records contacted and said they needed 30,000. They increased the order. That's all that was simply happening.
Mr. Haran, what happened when you came back from vacation?
Upon me arriving back in 2 days, I received the package. The package had a special custom order, of which I had not authorized, nor had I ordered to begin with. Hive Records had asked for an additional 20,000 sleeves, special sleeves, not special custom sleeves. I had placed this order before I left, so when I saw it, I called Rob Vasquez and he tells me, no, this is what you wanted. And I said, no, but I explained to him what I've explained to you, that I had placed the order before I left, that this was just...
But your assistant changed the order, right?
Yes, he did. No, he had changed the amount of the order.
Mr. Vasquez, when Mr. Freeman called you on the phone and changed the order, what did he say to you?
He told me, Mr. Vasquez, there's been a change in the order now. Now the client wants a special sleeve. So this is why I asked him, are you sure the special sleeves are a little bit more expensive?
One moment, Mr. Haran. I'd like to hear about the conversation.
Thank you. So I asked him, are you sure? Because these special sleeves cost a lot more, and I'm not sure Mr. Haran is going to approve that. He said, no, I'm totally sure. Let's go ahead with the order.
Mr. Haran, did you speak to Mr. Freeman about the particular conversation that he had with Mr. Vasquez?
Of course I did. I asked him what happened, and he says, I called Rob Vasquez and told him we needed an extra 20,000, which was instructed by Hive Records to have produced for this new band they're releasing.
Now, did he ask for an extra 20,000 of the same?
Of the same exact.
Sleeves?
The same exact special sleeves. That's the way they're
So he asked for special sleeves?
Special sleeves. Somehow, Mr. Rob Vasquez here thought that special meant custom sleeves, of which I had not ordered, would not order, and had instructed Mr. Vasquez that I would never order them nor deal with them because of the cost effectiveness of them. They're too expensive to produce and to make any money back.
Mr. Haran, what makes you think that this wasn't just a misunderstanding between your assistant and Mr. Vasquez?
Your Honor, I don't see a misunderstanding happening in an instance where I have already ordered something, and all we're doing is adding an additional order to it.
What were your instructions to Mr. Freeman when you left for vacation? What was he supposed to do?
My instructions were that everything with Hive Records had been settled and set up with Mr. Rob Vasquez.
But he is your assistant, so wouldn't he be taking over your responsibilities when you're gone?
Well, he was not instructed to take any responsibility other than to, use common sense, and everything was set up. So basically he was there to answer the phone and to deal and to change.
We'll get to you, Mr. Vasquez. You told him to use his common sense when you were
I told him
gone?
to use his common sense in terms of the office work that was required to be done. All deals are done by me. All amounts are negotiated by me. All orders are confirmed by me. I own the company. Mr. Friedman works for me. Let's clarify this, Rob. In 9 years...
But wait a second. You just
Your Honor.
said a moment ago that Mr. Freeman has made orders before?
No, Mr. Friedman may follow up on an order as he did in this particular case. When an order is placed, it's placed by me and it's confirmed by me because I'm going to pay for it, Your Honor.
Okay, one moment. Mr. Vasquez, have you spoken to Mr. Freeman about other orders?
Many times.
So you have a relationship with him?
Of course, he's been with his company for 2 years. We've gone through this before. This is what I'm saying. We've gone through this before. He obviously hired this guy because he knows what he's doing. So if he's going to go away on vacation and you're going to leave a business that's,
9 years, we're together. Not once have I not confirmed an order
Mr.
with you.
Ron, would you like to hear what Mr. Vasquez is saying, please?
Mr. Freeman many times have called me. We've changed orders. We've fixed orders. This time now, because it's $18,995, is why he doesn't want to pay now.
Do you have any indication from Mr. Haran that you're not supposed to do business with Mr. Freeman?
No, he's never told me you're not to do any business, or if Mr. Freeman calls you, you call me first. Had that been the case, I would have called directly to wherever he might have been, and I would have reconfirmed that order with him, and we would not be here today, Your Honor.
Okay, moving on. Mr. Haran, I want to clarify one thing. What happened when the shipment came to your place of business?
On its arrival, I returned the shipment to Mr. Vasquez because it was not what we ordered.
So did you accept it originally?
No, I did not accept it. I had the shipping company take it right back.
Okay, and Mr. Vasquez, what happened when the shipment arrived at your company?
Well, I refused to take it, and I had them take it back.
So now the shipment is,
I believe in some warehouse storage.
all right, I understand, I have enough information. Thank you, I will return with my verdict.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So this is question number 9. What source of agent power that we just discussed earlier is the Vasquez case? Blank, blank. Creation of a relationship typically involves the blank power to blank the principal to blank parties and third parties to the principal. We just talked about this. In an agreement of some type. The primary sources of an agent's power are 1 blank, 2 blank, and 3 blank. Blank authority arises either when the parties blank agree to create an agency relationship or when the authority is blank, or when the authority is blank based on custom of the course of past dealings.
In the case of Mr. Vasquez versus Mr. Haran, I am finding for Mr. Vasquez. Even though Mr. Haran didn't give his assistant, Mr. Freeman, permission to make or alter this type of an order, he did give him the applied authority when he went away on vacation, and he told Mr. Freeman to use his common sense. And that gives Mr. Freeman the reasonable impression that he should do what he needs to do to keep the business up and running. There's also a parent authority issue here. There's nothing that would lead Mr. Vasquez to believe that Mr. Freeman didn't have the authority to make this type of an order. They had an ongoing relationship. Mr. Freeman had made orders like this before. He'd altered orders like this before. Mr. Vasquez knew that Mr. Haran had left Mr. Freeman in charge while he went on vacation. He had the title of assistant of Mr. Haran. It's only natural that he would be taking over the duties that Mr. Haran normally would be doing if he weren't on vacation. For all these reasons, I don't think it would be fair to hold Mr. Vasquez liable. Mr. Haran has to pay for the order.
I'm going to take an actual or apparent. But we just talked about that. It's the creation of an agency relationship. Typically involves the agent's power to bind the principal to third parties and third parties to the principal in an agreement of some type. The primary sources of an agent's power are actual authority, apparent authority, or ratification. Actual authority arises either when the parties expressly agree to create an agency relationship or when the authority is implied, like the judge said, implied authority based on custom or course of past dealings. Okay? And that's the slide we talked about authority just a few minutes ago. Okay, number 10. The doctrine of blank decisis, one of the most important concepts in American law, is the principle that blank blank with blank blank and blank should have similar outcomes. The notion of applying the blank of blank cases to blank cases with substantially similar blank is called blank. Blank established in one state's courts will have blank bearing on the courts of another state. This doctrine relates to which source of law? Yes, ma'am.
The doctrine of stare decisis,
Yes.
one of the most important concepts in American law, is the principle that is the principle that similar cases with similar facts and
Yes.
issues should have the same judicial outcome.
Yes.
The notion of applying the law of previous cases to current cases with substantially similar circumstances is called precedent.
Yes, precedent. Stare decisis. Go ahead.
Precedent established in one state's court will have
Don't worry about it. Keep going.
the doctrine relates to
You should know this one.
Administrative?
No. I mean, I've been talking about it all semester.
Common law.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Who said Jesus Christ? Yes, common law. You would think that, yes, there's going to be one question about that. I think I probably left that blank out. Yeah, I did. So, stare decisis, precedent, common law, that's, to me, the basis of all law. So we should know that that's going to be. All right, question 11. You are in federal court. Federal court. Subject matter jurisdiction, the court's authority over disputes, is based on blank or blank, which requires 1, parties blank, and 2, blank and blank more than blank. Personal jurisdiction, the court's authority over the parties in the dispute regarding out-of-state defendants, must be authorized by blank. Exercise over out-of-state defendants must meet constitutional requirements of blank, which requires blank and blank. This is our flow chart. We talked about this extensively in the last class. You got it? Okay. Come on.
Is it a federal question or diversity?
Okay. All right.
Diversity of citizenship?
So we have to have either, say the person,
federal question
or
diversity of citizenship.
And when you have diversity, what do you have to have for that?
Parties from 2 different states.
And
amount in controversy
more than
$75,000.
Okay, great. You got some subject matter. Okay, now for personal jurisdiction, it must be authorized by
state long-arm statute.
Okay. Exercise over jurisdiction of out-of-state defendant must meet the constitutional requirements of blank.
Fairness.
Yes, you got it. Which requires what? Remember I kept talking about the shoes? I have to have
fairness and due process.
Okay, fairness and due process, but to meet fairness and due process, I have to establish somebody. Yes, sir.
Minimum contact.
Minimum context. Minimum context and what? Minimum contact. I have to have some minimum context with that state. You had it on your paper, didn't you? Well, you're not going to just read it right off your paper, then what can I do? Very good. Okay. Remember, this is the flow chart. To get into federal court, you're going to have 1 or 2 things. Federal question of diversity and citizenship. We just talked about that with the Walmart case, with the guy with the marijuana. They didn't have a federal question. I mean, him smoking marijuana on the job, there's no federal question about that. So to remove that case, they had to have diversity and citizenship. Okay?
This is the plaintiff, Kristen Jenna. She says she owns a hair salon, and the defendant bought the building where she's been in business the past 15 years. When he bought it, he jacked up her rent. She refused to sign a new lease, and he basically threatened her life. Bottom line, the guy's a creep. She's owed her $3,000 in security deposit, and is suing for just that today. This is the defendant, Boris Borakov. He says the plaintiff up and left him high and dry and moved out without notice. He didn't get all of his rent, has every right to keep her money and doesn't owe her a dime. He's accused of lousy landlording.
All parties, seated your engine.
What you're about to witness is real. The participants are not actors. They are actual litigants with a case pending in civil court. Both parties have agreed to drop their claims and have their cases settled here before Judge Marilyn Millian. Our forum, the People's Court.
You see it, come to work. Let me get 10 minutes for me on.
Thank you, Douglas. Kristen Jenna, doing business as Fingerprints Salon. You are suing Nika Estates, represented here by Boris Borukov, the owner. And who's the gentleman with you?
This is my son.
Okay. For $3,000 of your security deposit that you say he is refusing to return and he has no grounds to. Tell me what happened here.
I built the salon from the ground up. Like, there was nothing. There was just concrete floors, walls. I built it with my father, my husband, my sons every night. I put my whole life into it.
How long ago?
2008. My father died in 2016, 8 years later. And right after that, this man bought the building. Okay, so he came in, and I was grieving and a mess. The man just died, and came in and raised my rent about $800 a month.
Well, didn't you have a lease?
Unfortunately, the lease, it was a five-year option. Old school Italians, it was a handshake.
Well, no.
After the 5 years.
Right.
I know.
You know? I mean, you know what we call people who do deals on a handshake? Litigants.
Yeah.
Right. That's the problem.
Okay.
So he has a perfect right. I mean, I know.
Yes, he did.
You know, I'm sorry that you're grieving or whatever, but he has a perfect right to raise the rent. So how did he notify you that he was raising the rent?
To my face, he said to me, I want an additional $800 a month if you're going to stay here. I begged.
And how much were you paying then?
Paying $1,950. And he wanted like $2,700 or something like that.
And so you begged?
So I begged. I said, can you please? I said, it's a small mom and pop business. I said, I don't have it. I don't make it. I'll show you my books. I begged him.
Right.
So he agreed to $350 increase to $2,300.
Wait, how much did you agree to?
$2,600. We shake the hand. She said, give me till Christmas.
Shake the hand. Why are you shaking her hand? You're not Italian. Why don't you guys put it in writing?
What doctrine of contract law may apply to the facts of this case if the duration of the parties' agreement was more than 1 year? The blank point. Yes.
So,
all right. Okay. There are how many circuits?
12.
Okay. There are 2 circuits that are not specifically numbered. Are there 12? How many are? Do you have a map? No? I mean, I keep showing y'all that map. Oh, okay, I got hands going up all over the place. And his went just like right up. I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
There are 13.
Okay.
The 2 not on the map are the 12 and 13.
No. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
13, the District of Columbia, and the Federal Circuit.
Yes. Name at least 3 states in the 9th Circuit.
California.
Uh-huh.
Nevada.
Uh-huh.
And Arizona.
Yep. Done deal. I have a final apprentice winner right here. Y'all, that was painful.